Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a good day. Thank you for being in this meeting as I wanted to discuss about a very important topic regarding to inclusive education in our school. For the ones who don't know me, I'm Dharmini Bandaranayake, one of the grade 5 class teachers. I also teach in a separate unit for students with intellectual development learning needs. I recently met a new family who is going to enroll their two twins into our school, named Georgia and Luca. Georgia will be allocated into our mainstream class for year 5, while Luca, who is presented on autism spectrum disorder level 2, has to be placed in a different segregated unit. After analyzing and having meetings with year 5 teachers and Luca's parents, I believe that it is time to re-evaluate inclusive education and consider how we can give equal rights and equitable access to both twins in our education system. So today I would like to discuss the reason we should close the separate unit for students with disabilities, highlighting the student Luca and the importance of making an inclusive education system for Luca as well as for our school community. When talking about the evolution of inclusive education, Australia has transitions from exclusion and segregation to integration and finally to inclusion. Before 1800, students with disabilities were excluded from school settings. From 1800 to 1970, they were sent to special schools away from their same age peers, known that as segregation stage. After 1970s, the normalization movement began, interacting students with disabilities into existing schools without sufficient reasonable adjustment. In 1978, the Warnock Report eliminated existing differences in education for students with disabilities and students without disabilities, and this caused the enrollment of students with disabilities in mainstream schools to increase rapidly. During this 19th era, the Discrimination Act and the Disability Standards for Education provide strong backing support for inclusion, stating that all students have a right of education without any discrimination. Now I'm going to tell you why we should remove the segregated unit from our school. Australia has a strong legal commitment to inclusive education both internationally and nationally. Therefore, it is essential and legally bound us to remove the segregated unit by aligning with these policies of inclusion. By separating Luca from the mainstream classes due to his disability reflecting the medical model of disability, we unintentionally infringed on one of the Luca's human rights as a school. According to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, Article 24 specifically mandates that state parties must guarantee the right to inclusive education systems at all levels. It also states that all mainstream educational environments should not deny access to students with disabilities due to their condition and make reasonable adjustments to meet their individual needs. This was also stated by the Disability Discrimination Act and Disability Standards for Education, which ensure all students have the right to education without discrimination. Therefore, by adhering to these guidelines and protocols, we ought to make reasonable adjustments and differentiation by aligning with the social model to guarantee that all students have equitable access to the curriculum and are granted all human rights and principles of social justice. Moreover, the Salamanca statement emphasizes that for schools to be inclusive, they must create inclusivity inside the classrooms by addressing discriminatory attitudes and ensuring that all students feel valued, respected, connected, and accepted in a safe environment that is free from discrimination, regardless of any disabilities. Eliminating the segregating unit also eliminates the discriminatory concepts such as ableism, othering, and gatekeeping, thereby ensuring our commitment to the support for students' human rights and social justice. Concepts like ableism, gatekeeping, and othering will result in devaluing people with disabilities, limiting their autonomy, participation, and community access within the school, thus creating pathways to violation, racism, ageism, abuse, neglect, and intersectional discrimination by creating multiple disadvantages in school communities. Now let's talk about the student Luca. He is like the other students, intelligent and brave. He showcases his talents in art and music and has interest in fields like astronomy and aviation. What does autism level 2 means? This is a lifelong neurodevelopment disorder that impacts the way people communicate, interact, behave, and acquire knowledges. When talking about challenges, Luca faces unique challenges in both verbal and nonverbal communication during social interactions, challenges in sensory regulation, including both hypersensitivity and hypersensitivity in daily routines, challenges in motor controls and displaying restrictive and repetitive behaviors. Therefore, these factors can impede Luca's executive functional skills, including planning, managing time, organizing daily tasks, and focusing on attention in the classroom activities. However, the impairment of autism spectrum disorder does not impede his ability to achieve his learning goals. To support his difficulties, what strategies can we use? First, to provide clear schedules and routines, teachers can use simplified, colorful visual timetables and paste in Luca's tables where he can easily view what is next and adjust it to transitions without anxiety. To capture Luca's interest thoroughly, we can use images related to aviation and aerospace. We can also provide technological tools such as timers, watches, and reminders for Luca to adjust in his plans and schedules. Secondly, scaffolds big tasks into simple, manageable chunks. For these purposes, we can use multi-step instructional checklists or concept maps to follow step by step. Thirdly, by using concrete materials, blocks to model mathematics, and practice-based learning instead of abstract learning, teachers can add concrete materials related to planet space and aerospace. Implementing strategies for sensory sensitivity, such as allowing Luca to use noise-reducing headphones or creating a quiet space for him to go when there are unexpected sounds in the classroom. Finally, implementing structured, explicit teaching for Luca by using the gradual release of responsibility model. Furthermore, I will implement meaningful differentiation teaching strategies by aiming for equity for all students, including Luca, thus providing a flexible and supportive environment that encourages the values and active participation of all students. Now let's discuss what benefits and implications for stakeholders and for Luca by implementing this inclusive model. This can be highlighted through Bronfenbrenner's ecological model by demonstrating how diverse relationships between different systems interconnected with each other and impact Luca's development. If Luca were allocated to the mainstream inclusive educational setting, he would be benefit in several ways. First foremost, he will get an equal opportunity to learn the national curriculum on the same basis as other peers. When there is support, acceptance, and respect from same-age peers and other microenvironments, Luca will develop his social communication and interaction skills, feel connected and self-belonging, being able to make new friends, and being independent. Therefore, from these benefits, Luca will experience positive implications of developing his confidence, boost active participation, and increase in overall personal academic growth in classroom activities. If we are unable to make our school community more inclusive and unable to implement earlier inclusive strategies, Luca will have to face negative implications such as being bullied by his friends for being different and leading to self-isolation. If there are no structured inclusive practices such as universal design for learning, explicit teaching, and differentiation, it will result in Luca's reducing his academic performances. Thus, these adverse results will affect Luca to be overwhelmed, discouraged, and reduce confidence and self-esteem for learning. When talking about benefits for Luca's parents, when Luca is placed in a mainstream inclusive classroom, it demonstrates that he is belonging in part of the school community. This makes his parents feel a sense of acceptance and feel respected within the school society and helps them to recover from any feeling of stigma and negative stereotypes from society. Moreover, parents are assured about Luca's learning as he gets equal access to the same curriculum as his twin brother. Luca's parents feel self-satisfied and happy as Luca gets the opportunity to develop his social communication skills, thorough interactions, and development his independent skills day by day. On the other hand, Luca's parent will have certain concerns regarding the mainstream inclusive setting, such as questions about behavior management, whether teachers possess the necessary academic qualification to adequately support students with disabilities, and concerns about Luca's abilities to manage classroom activities without being bullied, concerns about teacher collaborations, and the availability of school resources to facilitate Luca's learning needs. With regards to Luca's friends and school community, research states that there are no negative implications in an inclusive classroom. Overall inclusiveness helps other students in the class to practice and develop their empathy, respect, patience, responsiveness, acceptance of diversity, and build respectful relationships, thus resulting in a positive behavior development. The most important thing is that students with non-disabilities can also benefit from different teaching strategies and instructional methods. For example, universal design for learning, which I use to support Luca. This provides students with non-disabilities to learn in multiple learning styles. Thus, it will encourage overall engagement, creativity, and problem-solving strategies within all students in Luca's class. In teachers' perspective, they get the opportunity to develop their high-impact teaching skills through differentiated instructions and reasonable adjustments when addressing Luca's learning needs. Also, teachers get the opportunity to build up true and trustworthy relationships of strong parent-teacher collaborations, as well as foster collaborations with therapists, specialists, and behavior support personnel involved with Luca. This will develop professional development, peer learning, and social skills of teachers, overall being able to create a positive classroom culture which also results in high performances of students. Last week, one parent emailed me her concerns in regards of Luca's being included in her son's class. I would like to share my reply which I sent to her. Thanks for raising your concern with the school. Mentioning the word normal for students without disabilities means that you consider students with disabilities as abnormal, which is a discrimination, according to the national and international human rights legal frameworks and policies, which Australia is legally committed to follow. Based on the research, it also shows that including Luca will not cause any negative result or hindering in other students' learnings. However, it improves the overall class's progression due to multiple differentiated teaching strategies. The reason because in our class we use explicit teaching, clear structured and tailored routines including universal design for learning and multi-tiered systems of support that provide proactive individualized support for all students. Therefore, the lessons are designed and differentiated by making them accessible for all levels of learners. Moreover, having inclusion in the class also helps other students to develop positive behavior developments, such as developing teamwork skills, empathy, acceptance, diversity, leadership skills, responsiveness, along with trust and patience.